It's 3:35 at News Talk 1400 WRJN. This is the afternoon news. Ted Allen here. Great to have you with us. Always good to have you joining us between 3 and 6 Monday through Friday here at News Talk 1400 WRJN. And the book Love Never Dies, How to Reconnect and Make Peace with the Deceased. Our next guest, the author of that book, shares the amazing true story of her spiritual reconnection with her beloved deceased husband, discovering for herself that relationships don't end in death. She has created a groundbreaking new grief therapy method that combines her acclaimed conflict resolution methods with after-death communication. And she is no stranger to the media because she's been a well-known radio and television personality for 3 decades with her engaging blend of professional expertise as well as spicy humor now and again. Known as Dr. Love, she joins us right now on the afternoon news at News Talk 1400 WRJN, the author of Love Never Dies. We welcome Dr. Love, or better known as Dr. Jamie. Actually, you're probably better known as Dr. Love, but she's Dr. Jamie Turndorf. Dr. Turndorf, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Hello. So nice to be with you.
It's nice having you with us as well. And obviously, this book is a very unique and a very personal experience that you've gone through, and you wanted to share it with others. Tell us more about the book, Doctor.
Well, I was married for almost 27 years to the love of my life, Émile Jean Pain. He went by Jean Pain. For most of his life, Jean had been one of the most famous Jesuit priests in history, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes, he taught at the Vatican. He launched to international fame when he publicly opposed the Pope and the Catholic Church. They were trying to block the legalization of divorce, and he founded a movement called Liberation Theology, designed to fight church oppression from within. And he got the divorce bill passed, changed the course of history in Italy. And the Pope then gave him the dispensation. Soon after, he left the Jesuits and the priesthood. He went to Vassar College. They recruited him as the chair of their Department of Sociology, and I met him there. But the funny thing is, I had actually had a premonition of this man from the time I was a young girl. I saw him as the man I would marry. So the first day of my freshman year, I was shut out of all intro sociology. I walked into his office, and the minute I stepped into his office, I had this out-of-body experience. Felt my soul shooting at high speed through a tunnel to the end of my life, and then I get this message when I shoot back into my body: remember every aspect of this meeting. He's going to be everything to you one day. Now, this was pretty wild, and I just forgot it altogether, and we soon got together, and we were crazy for each other for 27 years, and in the last year of his life, we started having a premonition he was going to die of an accident. We just didn't know when or where.
Really?
Right. So we go to Italy, and sure enough, the accident happened close to really where he launched to fame. We weren't far from Rome. We were on the beach. He was stung by a bee, and I watched him suffocate to death.
No.
Yes. The crazy thing is, now mind you, Jean's life was steeped in religion, right? He was this famous Jesuit. I was raised by 2 atheists, right, who taught me not to believe in God or the afterlife. But the minute that man left his body, he made his presence known to me. I go back to the hotel room. I'm lying in the bed hysterically crying and shaking. And the next thing I know, I feel his hand stroke the entire length of my spine. And I know what I felt, and I sit bolt upright because I felt him do it. And this was just the beginning. He has been with me ever since, and his manifestations of his presence, often in front of witnesses, have just proven to me we don't die. Our relationships don't end in death. And as a result of this, it led me to create a whole new grief therapy method. That's what Love Never Dies is all about. I show people how to reconnect rather than say goodbye, because our Western approach to grief leaves the bereaved at a greater loss. It's grieve, let go, move on, do it in 6 months, And my method says say hello, not goodbye. And what's more, I know there isn't a soul alive who doesn't have some unfinished business with someone who's passed over. And so Love Never Dies shows you not only how to reconnect, but also how to work out any unfinished business, which is something that traditional Western grief therapy doesn't enable us to do. either.
Now, I've got to ask you a question about this because this sounds tremendously unique, okay?
It is.
And I'm wondering if, because the thing is, you are on radio, television, internationally known, and I'm sure you told this story. Have you heard from other people who have gone through a similar situation, a similar experience as you with everything you've just mentioned here?
Yes, this is what's interesting. I'm doing a radio show on Hay House Network in addition to my own, Ask Dr. Love show. And I started telling my story, and the most amazing thing happened, which is what I hoped would happen. People just, the flood of gratitude, calling up and saying, you know what? Everything that you're describing that has happened to you has happened to us. And we thought we were crazy, and we thought we were imagining things. But now, because a very famous, publicly known shrink is willing to admit these things, we can come out of the shadows and say, you know what? It happened to us too. And for most people, just realizing that it's possible is enough to begin the process for them of reconnecting. Hearing, yes, it is possible. Because the thing is, the party line is you're not supposed to, you can't talk to loved ones in spirit. You got to wait till you die until you are reconnected with them in heaven. And actually, I found out that this is, if you'll pardon the pun, dead wrong, right?
Yeah.
And I found it out through the most amazing way. My first night back from Italy, Ted, I'm lying in the bed crying again in my, house here. And all of a sudden I hear Jean saying to me something that's a quote from a passage. I don't know what it is. So the next day I go to see his priest. And I say, Jean's been speaking to me. And the priest looks at me with this, obvious skepticism. He raises his brow. And then I tell him what Jean's been saying. And he says to me, "Dear God, Jamie," and he crosses himself. At first I didn't believe you, but I do believe you now. He said, "You're quoting an obscure biblical passage from the Communion of Saints." Like I would know, Ted.
Sure.
I never read the Bible. I never went to church.
Interesting.
Jean and I didn't discuss religion. So it took me a year to understand why Jean chose to quote that and only that passage to me. Because he was a religious pioneer in life. He continues to be in the afterlife. And he was telling me, Jamie, there's a biblical foundation for reconnecting with our loved ones in spirit, because the Communion of Saints says that our loved ones in spirit are one with, or in communion with, God and the saints. And since we're supposed to stay in communion and communication with God and the saints, we are supposed to stay in communion and communication with our loved ones in spirit, who are one with God and the saints. And he's saying to me, what we've been told about the afterlife is dead wrong. We are not supposed to live in an emotional wasteland, separated from the people we love who are in spirit. Heaven is now. Heaven's all around us. Heaven's a state, not a place. So reconnect. Don't say goodbye, say hello.
Now,
that's how it all was born.
Another question that I have for you, because obviously you have a similar connection and a similar sensation, if you will, when you first met him. Throughout your life as married, and then from there, after he passes on, you have these experiences happening. Now, being that you're a doctor and studied psychology, you're somebody who understands science. Is there a scientific explanation for what's going on with those sensations, with those feelings, even beyond life as we know it?
So I hear what you're asking me, and it's very important that I say to you, this isn't just sensations, that people have, or you're imagining things. These things happen. Like, let me give you an example. May I?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. On the first week after he left his body, I had to fax his death certificate to Verizon to take him off the account.
Right.
Earlier in the day, I had faxed many multi-page documents, right? And they went through fine. They weren't the death certificate or the obituary. There were other things. But when I went to fax his obituary, the cover letter went through fine. But when I went to have the obituary go through, the machine froze and it wouldn't send it.
Really?
So I try again with the cover letter and the death certificate. Same thing. The cover letter goes, the death certificate won't go. I tried 20 times. Same thing over and over.